Isn't this basically the plot of Street Trash? Are you Street Trash?
Yes.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
Here, Jamie. It's Sam Russo. It's Jamie Carruthers. It's the Final Transmission podcast. One horror movie per week from the dawn of time untileth the endst of times. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing wonderfully, Sam. How are you doing?
Kicking its ass over here as usual. Feeling fantastic. Feeling ready to talk some shit about a movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked to be back in the Great White North. Back in Slashersville, Ontario.
Well. Aren't we going in hard early? Yeah, we're taking a visit to Canada.
We are.
Today. Or are we? All right, let's just tell them what we're doing.
Okay, well, it's the month of February, and as you know, dear listener, dear fan, dear long-time back catalogue subscriber, we are covering Valentine's themed movies for the month of February. That's movies themed around love, or in this case, themed around the word Valentine. So we're covering My Bloody Valentine.
There it is, and it's filmed in Canada, but is it set in Canada?
Yes, I mean it must be, right? Is it not? Are they explicit
Well,
about
it's a
where it's
made-up
set?
place.
Well, yeah, but Valentine Bluffs might as well be in Canada, right? If it's not in Canada, then why does everybody who lives in Valentine Bluffs say a boat?
There's a lot of boats and a lot of sorries.
Yeah.
Yes, two telltale signs that you're in Canada, bud. If someone's saying sorry about that, then you're definitely north of the what's the border? 49th parallel. So Canada plus slasher equals huge potential, gigantic oodles of potential, because, you know, that would make it a contemporary of Black Christmas, for example.
Also came out the same year.
Same credentials.
Yeah. Same.
How interesting.
Funded by the same wing.
Government agency.
Cultural wing of the government, yeah.
Isn't Canada fantastic? Let's just take a moment to just gush over Canada briefly. Sure, it's got its flaws, but there's some things it has a great track record with. Funding the arts, helping small independent musicians tour out of province, giving loads of money to people who are just trying to contribute to art in the world. And for that, Canada, we applaud you.
We do.
The systematic erasure and extermination and genocide of your native peoples, not so much. However,
I mean,
good job on the art stuff.
We know that they did that, but so did America, and so did Britain.
Hey, easy. Yeah, of course. But what have we ever done to make up for it? Not much. Canada at least made a couple of slashes.
The Arctic Monkeys. That's our big cultural export. I have no idea.
Yeah, but in terms of the things that Canada does for the arts, some good shit. Historically.
I think that Britain does some decent stuff for the arts. Maybe not governmentally or whatever.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of like, if you say to Canada, hey, I'd like to at least subsist while making some art, they'll be like, sure. Here's how.
Yeah. Whereas in Britain,
if you say that here, you just get kicked in the face.
Yeah. So the CDFA have such an amazing track record of producing movies that, you know, are swings and are weird things to represent Canada. Obviously, there's all of the slashers that they produce. So Black Christmas, My Bloody Valentine, Happy Birthday to You, to me. Obviously, all of the early Cronenberg stuff, like Shivers and Rabid, as you would say, and like Meatballs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, this is like what Canada has picked to represent their brightest and best. And I mean, I would say that they were right to do so, but it does seem odd to come from, you know, the propaganda wing of the Canadian government to send Ivan Reitman and John Candy and Black
Send their
Christmas into the
finest.
world.
Yeah, there's some interesting theories about that I won't bore you to tears with. But I once read a little book by a little fella called Mike Myers, and the book is called Canada, and it's his. We've talked about it before, but it's his love letter to his native land, and he talks about the Canadian crisis of identity and how that. America has like a pioneering sense of identity and has freedom at its core and has all these ideals and, the American dream and all these things that they hold up as being fundamental and core to their identity. He talks about this Canadian crisis of identity that left them very open-minded to figuring out who they are as a nation and very willing to try lots of different things in the arts and in sports and in entertainment more broadly. And I think some of this is almost kind of symptomatic of that. It's that willingness to try new things and the eagerness to contribute and a slight lack of self-confidence to fully do something to the max. It's a really interesting theory. I haven't read into it much more deeply, but the few people I've read about who believe that have some pretty compelling arguments for it. So when I see stuff like this coming out of Canada and being a product of Canadian artistic culture at the time, I think it fits really nicely with my understanding of what was happening.
That's lovely.
Good.
I really enjoyed that.
So fuck you, Jay.
They're not the propaganda wing of the Canadian government. I was joking when I said that. If any Canadians are out there and they haven't already switched off,
Yep.
that was just the Josh.
When was this? 1988?
No, 81.
81?
Yeah, this is
Heckin' honk.
yeah, this is right in the birth of the slasher genre. Really, obviously, just a few years on the heels of Halloween. Same year
it's
as
very
Black
interesting.
Christmas.
Yeah, you've got Pierre Trudeau is the Prime Minister of Canada in 81.
That is interesting.
Big boss man himself.
The only Canadian president or Prime Minister, rather, that I know, apart from Justin Trudeau, is Diefenbacher, and that's because that's the name of the dog in Due South.
Nicely done. Excellent connective tissue there. How do you feel about the glorification of the mounted police in the TV show Due South?
I mean, we've talked about this before, and obviously,
I trapped you.
obviously, I'm aware of the problematic nature of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
So you retract your previous. You're gonna issue an apology now. Is that what this is?
I'm not issuing an apology on behalf of Due South.
I think you're the perfect man to do that. Apologise, Jamie. Apologise for Due South.
If anything, I was always on the side of Ray Vecchio, so... and he was...
In defence of Due South does rule. It doesn't hold up very well, but it is great comfort viewing, right? Good background shit.
I don't remember anything that actually happens. He solves crimes, and he's a friendly man, and he's paired with a grumpy New York cop. That's it. That's all I remember.
Are you interested in Law and Order Toronto, which has a new season coming out soon?
Is it just that they were like, we can't be bothered pretending it's not Toronto anymore? So
yeah, we're just gonna be open about it. Here's the skyline, not the back alleys. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't like Law and Order. We've talked about this, I think, fairly recently, because I think that fucking what's his name is such a bad cop that all of his cases should just get thrown out.
Yeah. Because
he never reads people their rights, and he's always really aggressive. And
there's only so much mileage in watching people get their rights read on TV, though. You've seen it once, you've seen it 1,000 times.
They should at least, do you know, like when you couldn't sing Happy Birthday, and so it would always be like, to you, because you had to pay loads of money because somebody held the rights to Happy Birthday.
So is that real?
Yeah, so like they couldn't sing it in TV shows or in movies.
What?
So it would always just end with like that. So it would imply that they'd sung To You.
Interesting.
So they should just do that.
In a court of law.
Yeah. You have the right to
cut.
Like, maybe someone should trademark the Miranda rights. And then every time someone tries to read some of the Miranda rights, like, I get $7,000.
Has to really be worth it, boys, because Jamie Carruthers has got the fucking rights to this. So if you're going to read it to him, better be good.
I'd love to have the rights to the rights.
I'd like to have rights.
Yeah.
That would be a luxury.
Yeah.
Which is a joke you'll only get if you're on the Patreon. Right. Speaking of rights. So I was looking at this from a distance, squinty-eyed, suspiciously thinking, well, it's a Canadian slasher from 81. what could go wrong? And I was allowing myself to get a little bit excited because you know how I feel about slashers. I love them more than life itself. What do I love more than slashers? Slashers that are set on special days or that have some kind of absolute cash grab gimmick attached to them, and Canadians. So I was getting a warm tingly about this one. When did you first see it?
Had you not seen it before?
Full confession coming at you here, everyone. I saw this film absolutely battered at a Valentine's house party when I was like 14, and I do not remember it. I say absolutely battered. I probably had 2 shandy basses and a fucking bag of sweets and went out of my mind. And I remembered virtually nothing about
Was the party at mine?
At yours?
No, not at mine. At a mine.
Mine? It was not in a mine, no. Okay. Nor was it at yours. Or at your mine, your coal mine in China. It was... it was at Philippa McRae's house, and she insisted if we were going to watch Valentine's movies that first of all we watched Titanic. So maybe I wasn't 14, maybe I was 15 or something. So we had to watch Titanic, which is really long, and in the process of watching that, I got so bored. Exactly. Yeah, the big double thick box.
Yeah.
I got really bored, and I think I wandered off and just sort of raided some random booze cupboard in her house and just got a bit fucking schnockered, and then came back and My Bloody Valentine was on.
Can I ask you a house party teenage question?
Oh, please do. It's probably my favourite thing to talk about in the world.
Did you, when you were a kid, polish off a little bottle of Coca-Cola and then get a little bit of every bit of booze in your parents' booze cupboard into one bottle and then take that to the party?
Great strategy. Saw it many times. Saw it executed very well by many people. Controversial. My parents didn't have a liquor cabinet to speak of any kind. So wow. I had to source my liquors in more creative ways. And normally that meant whoever's house I was going to was getting their booze stolen. I also had a good buddy who used to hook me up with a little bit of booze on the side at the local newsagent.
Nice.
Which was always a treat. How else do we get booze? We found a load once. This was pretty good. Found a load of booze, just like in the street. You know, when shit just gets left in the street, it was just a box, and it had loads of like half-drunk spirits, and you know, probably a horribly sad story attached to how that ended up being there. But we just hid it in the woods and drank it for months.
Isn't this
back to this?
Basically the plot of Street Trash? Are you street trash?
Yes, we got completely street trashed. We were like, oh, do you want to go to the box? And we go out to this box in the woods and just drink like straight vodka and ouzo and shit.
Well, I can't believe that no itinerant tramp found the way to the box.
Oh, we hid it really well. We were really good at hiding stuff in the woods, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay. So that's the story of you watching this and you don't really remember it. Is that what you're saying? Because you were smashed off 2 shandy basses.
Yeah, exactly. And a few sherbet straws. I remember thinking, this is probably a great time to try and get off with someone because they've just watched Titanic and now it's a scary movie. The perfect, Valentine's atmosphere. I was fucking hammered. I couldn't do shit. I was useless. So I just sort of like wandered around, not really watching and don't really remember it. What I wished is that I had remembered seeing this because then we wouldn't be in this situation now. But I had it on my list forever, obviously, because it's on every like quintessential must-see slasher movie, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But in my experience, it's always slipped down the list a little bit. It seems to be one that's, while not maligned, maybe not championed as much as some of our big swinging franchises or some of the outlier, smaller independent slashers that seem to get trumpeted up the old razzmatazz. So what can you tell me about that?
Well, I feel like it falls in between the cracks of the big, huge slashers that are on everybody's lips, and also like the underrated slashers, like say The Burning, which I think isn't particularly underrated, but I think it's considered an underrated slasher, or even like Black Christmas or something like that, where it's like it's not talked about in the breadth of the big names, the Jasons and the Freddys and the Michaels and the whoever else is. But we'll get into maybe why. But I think maybe it's just not as good.
You don't think it's as good as, say, Friday the 13th?
Or even the Burning or whatever. I think it doesn't...
You don't think it's as good as The Burning? That's interesting.
No, I mean I like The Burning a lot.
The Burning.
But
yeah.
I don't think it's as memorable as any of those. I think it sort of slips between the cracks because it makes itself very small in relation to the cracks.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's hot takes firing out early here. You're really shooting from the hip.
I mean, I like the movie. I like
Yeah.
My Bloody Valentine, but I do think that it does a lot of things badly, and we'll get into them.
How interesting. I don't know why. I just thought you were going to be 100% Johnny all the way in on this.
Johnny Hilt.
Yeah, Johnny to the hilt. So how do you want to handle this, Jamie? Would you like to take a break and then come back and talk more about this film? Or is
Well,
there
why
anything
don't
else you'd like
you-
to talk about in non-spoiler terms?
Why don't you give us a synopsis? You've had a few weeks off
Oh, for fuck's sake.
of Snopstown. Take a shot of some delicious snops and tell us what My Bloody Valentine is about.
I can try my best, Jamie.
Okay, please do.
So there's this country called Canada. And in Canada is a town called Valentine Bluffs.
Mm-hmm.
And in Valentine Bluffs, we meet some people. It's just before Valentine's Day in Valentine Bluffs. This is a crucial detail.
Yeah, it's
to
worth
the
noting it's
synopsis.
Thursday the 12th. So
Ooh, did you look up what year that makes it in real life?
I don't know. I didn't look that up, but it says Thursday the 12th as a chyron at the opening of the film, which means that if Valentine's Day is on Saturday, which they do
Yeah.
allude to, then a number of the events of the film take place on Friday the 13th.
That's very interesting. A lovely nugget from you there.
Mm.
Now I can't start my synopsis again because you said something cool. I have to try and just tough it out. So, Valentine Bluffs is a coal mining town in Nova Scotia, which is a wonderful place to set a movie, in my opinion. No spoilers. And it's the first time they're having this Valentine's party in 20 years because the town is accursed by an ancient string of murders committed by a miner with an E. It's going to be very important that we distinguish between miners and minors.
What, a
in
child
this
on
movie.
ecstasy?
A child miner. Yeah, exactly. So the town has been essentially not partying on Valentine's Day for 20 years. And they've just decided, fuck it. We're going to do it. We're going to go for it. And we have a crew of young, horned up miners with an E getting ready for the party of their lifetimes. The first Valentine's party in 20 years in Valentine Bluffs. And they're out on the Raz getting pre-nogged for Valentine's Day when somebody is murdered by somebody. And the whole town is forced to reconcile and face their past. Will they have their Valentine's party, or will they all die in a mine? That's the plot of My Bloody Valentine.
It is. I think that's fine. I think that covers the stuff. And we'll see you after the break.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
Right. Jamie, I'm back. Are you ready? Are you back?
I'm so back, Sam. I'm so back.
You
and
look ready.
So ready to talk spoilers for My Bloody Valentine.
Spoilers. You just tell them who did it straight away.
Yeah. It was Ajax. What's his name? Axel.
Axel, Ajax, one of them guys. Quick question for you, though. Have you seen the remake?
I have, yeah.
What do you think? The 3D extravaganza that is the 2009 remake?
Yeah. I didn't hate it at the time. I've not watched it since, but I didn't mind it at the time. I think people thought it was pretty egregious.
Which one would you say you like more?
I mean, I like the original more. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I don't think it's very good.
Right.
It does some stuff that I think is interesting, and it does some stuff that I think is really annoying. I might have my least favorite character in a movie ever.
Whoa, really? Well, it's right in the sweet spot of incredibly annoying slasher characters, isn't it? In terms of timing and era.
He's the worst, though. Do you know who it is?
Is he worse than any of the guys from Freddy vs. Jason, who I think are fucking terrible?
Maybe not, but I wouldn't dignify that with putting it in the same category. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's barely a slasher at this point. That's just like a cash grab. Not that this isn't a cash grab.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you know which character I mean?
I mean, is it Axel?
No, he's fine.
He's fine. I mean,
It's Howard. It's fucking Howard.
oh, Why is Howard so bad?
He's like meant to be the funny one, but everything he just does is objectively terrible, not funny, and annoying.
Is it because the comedy becomes of its era and is therefore fucking asinine? Is that what happens?
So when we're first introduced to him, or maybe not first, but like when he like comes out of the party planning meeting and he's covered in like blood,
Yeah.
are we supposed to believe that that's what the blood looks like? We're supposed to believe that this old lady that's been alive for 68 years or whatever, it's like, yes, that's real blood. I believe that is real blood.
For a split second, yeah. I mean, listen, there has to be a japester, doesn't there?
Yeah,
The
there
slasher
does.
convention dictates. Oh, of course it does. There's got to be a prankster, a wily wiener, some kind of a guy who brings the laughs and sets up the terror.
Why couldn't that just be Hollis? Now, it's Patreon.
Hollis is not, for my money, a funny character.
No, but he
I don't
could
think
be.
he's a figure of fun.
He could be
No,
a
because I
wry,
think that takes away.
little smirky comedy man.
I think that would fundamentally undermine the purpose of his character in the movie. But I'm willing to discuss that further.
All right, well, we'll get to Hollis.
We better.
So yeah, I don't think the movie is very good. There are some things that are really good. There are some things that are particularly boring and egregious, and tonally, I think it's all over the shop.
Yeah.
But I do quite enjoy it. But I'm interested to find out what you think.
Let me preface this by saying I saw the remake drunk at a party and don't remember it. So I sat down to watch this, like I said, trying to kind of suppress some moderate to extreme excitement at the prospect. And I was overcome because this film is absolute magic to me. It's
Really?
a fucking slasher symphony. It's beautiful. It's pure perfection in the slasher genre. I absolutely am head over heels in love this Valentine's Day with My Bloody Valentine. Good old February always comes through for me. Always.
Okay, well, this is a fun reversal because normally
Yeah.
I'm the guy championing the movie and you're little fucking sad Sally. So
Yeah, normally you're pumping hard and I'm just weeping in the corner.
yeah, because I've been pumping so hard.
Yes, exactly. I just have a lot of very, very positive things to say about this film. And I think it's a borderline slasher masterpiece. I've had like 48 hours to let this one settle and simmer. I watched it twice.
Nice.
I purchased it because I enjoyed it so much. And I read as much as I could. I tried to do my research and nothing really jumped out and sort of contradicted my initial excitement or my enjoyment and entertainment of the viewing experience. So I feel pretty firm in my assessment that I love this film.
Okay, well that's good. Like I say,
I'm really curious to know why it's not more well loved, you know?
yeah, that's I can't answer that beyond what I already sort of speculated before the break. But I know what I don't like.
Yeah.
And I
Why don't we
think
start
maybe that's a problem. The whole
Phil.
climax of the film, everything that takes place in the mine at the end, I think is ostensibly something that you would consider generally pretty egregious, and that's people running around.
Easy. I don't mind people running around. I hate when they're running around without purpose, shrieking for 20 minutes.
That is literally the last 20 minutes of this movie.
With heavy caveats. 1, it's in a mine. 2, everything that led up to it. And 3, it's well executed, in my opinion.
I don't think it is. I think the stuff that takes place in the mine and the central mystery of the movie that isn't presented as a mystery, but a lot of people talk about this movie as if it's like a big slasher whodunit when they're talking throughout the movie about the killer being one person. And spoiler, shocker, turns out to not be him. It's another person.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's not as much a whodunit. It's more of a twist.
But people talk about it like it's really sort of mysterious and like a whodunit slasher. It's I don't think it is that. And the way that that's handled in the movie is one of the most annoying things I've seen in any movie. Because it's like, oh, the killer is Axel, and we have a 3-second flashback to his dad being killed and him being under the table or whatever. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I guess that'll do it. I guess that's all we need.
But isn't it?
No.
Isn't it refreshing to not have this like long protracted monologue from the killer where he explains why he's doing what he's doing? We see everything we need in like 5 seconds.
I don't think we see everything we need. We don't see him having costume changes every 15 seconds as he walks around different corners. We don't see
You
him.
don't need that. That's the last thing we need. You want to see that shit? No way.
Like, I don't want to see it.
Need.
I would like to understand the thought process of the person who is committing these crimes, and we don't get any of that. We get, oh, twist, it's this guy. It's this guy that's been here the whole time and is having a normal kind of relationship with a bunch of friends and a love triangle. And
Yeah.
turns out he's also a killer, and he's wearing the same outfit as the guy that killed his dad. And yeah, I think it's lame. It's lame, Sam.
I still don't really understand why. You're just saying the things that happen in the film and then saying they're lame.
It's because they're lame.
I don't see any like real moments in the movie where it's impossible to believe that he put on a jumpsuit and a helmet.
How about
And
when
then
they're
took
in
it
the
off again.
mine?
Yeah.
So he's not wearing a jumpsuit for a lot of it, a jumpsuit and a mask for a lot of it, and then sometimes he is. So like, is he just like dipping around the corner, getting changed, and then running back around the corner and getting unchanged?
Yeah, that was my general impression.
So like,
that's why the mine scene works to me though, because it's long enough and it's chaotic enough to permit that kind of suspension of disbelief type action. And it's, for me, an ending like that, a kind of chaotic, violent, kill-heavy ending, kind of has to be earned in the build-up. So the reason that it works for me is it's not constant, pummeling, totally unnuanced, running around pointless screaming. It's actually got some like pretty key moments in it that build to a what I feel like is a pretty satisfactory conclusion. So when I'm watching a dumb 80s slasher, I'm not thinking, how's he getting that jumpsuit on and off so quickly? It's not my key criticism, I would say. So maybe we're just watching it differently.
I think that if he really doesn't want people to have Halloween parties, he should have said something at the bar when they were like, hey, should we have a Halloween party? Let's go to the mine. He should have been like, yeah, they said we shouldn't have Halloween parties, so maybe we just don't do that.
Valentine's.
Sorry, yeah, Valentine's.
Yeah, but that speaks to something I find really fun about the movie, is that we don't get bogged down in his mental health diagnosis and the specifics of like what triggers this maniac. We just find out that he was traumatized by seeing his dad's death, and then for some reason 20 years later dressed up like a miner and started killing everyone on Valentine's night. So we don't get this like nuanced psychological profile of the killer. We get something that is ultimately, in my opinion, way more fun, which is the unknown. We're not taken on this like guided tour by a psychologist through the crime scenes or anything like that. We just get, holy fuck, he's gone nuts.
You love Loomis.
I do, and I love him for his role in that movie, because I think it's really important with Michael to have that character. You know, he plays like a really important, like almost Jungian archetype role in those movies. But we don't need it in this, because this is trashier and more fun, in my opinion. It's not as scary as Halloween. I think the first Halloween is kind of a masterclass in slasher horror. You know, it's a really quite unnerving, at times scary film. Whereas this is pretty much constantly fun, in my opinion, with some, you know, more frightening moments. But to bring that in, I think would be a bit of a misstep, and it would make it really clunky. Whereas at the moment, it's pretty clean in terms of the trajectory of events and what happens. And I'm really surprised by that little flashback and how much it does for us. We don't need any more. Like, there's other circumstances around it that might have been interesting to see, maybe a slightly longer, you know, explanation, some flashbacks to teenage years or something. But I don't know. I think it gets the job done.
Well, so my thinking is that the implication made by the movie and made by the characters in the movie, but made by the movie as a whole, I think, is that had they had a Valentine's party in any of the intervening years, Axel would have done the same thing.
Possibly.
So surely...
Maybe it's the love triangle that's kind of snapped him, though. That's my thinking. He's having a very stressful Valentine's.
Yeah.
And this could be his first love.
Yeah, maybe. I don't buy the logistics of it, and it's not like it's the normal slasher like logistics that you have to buy into or you can suspend your disbelief for. Like, I just don't buy into the logistics of committing these crimes. And like,
Right.
the old guy in the bar, he didn't have a Valentine's Day party. Why did he get killed?
What? Happy?
Yeah.
Cool kill? That's why. He's an interesting one because he's actively warning people. He's the sage almost. He's the crazy Ralph. He's telling them not to have a party because you'll all die. And so I don't think we expect him to die. I think we expect him to somehow escape and maybe deliver the ending narrative when everyone's dead. So I think it's really cool that he goes off to set up this crazy jump scare, this incredibly elaborate, mannequin miner in a cupboard with a pickaxe. And that is what ends up getting him killed. I just think that's an unpredictable edge to the killer that adds a bit of malice and bends the rules a little bit, which I've always been into. I think when you have a killer that's too by the book, it gets a little bit too predictable, and normally it leads to like, oh, they use his conventions against him, and that's how they end up killing or catching him. Whereas this is like, okay, we got a bit of a loose cannon on our hands here. He's literally a psycho miner, which I think is, again, if you want to talk about like cool slasher killers, I don't understand why this isn't more iconic. He's in a fucking miner's costume, a Nova Scotia miner with a pickaxe. It's dreamy.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of touched on another thing that bugs me a little bit there, which is that I think that he does too much with a pickaxe.
Why?
I just think that I get bored of watching people get pickaxed after a while. And so does
Don't
the
you think
movie.
these
Like,
are
it starts just, like, not bothering to show them anymore.
Well, I think that's more a censorship thing, but we need to talk about how hardcore this got absolutely butchered by the censors. But I love the pickaxe as a weapon in everything, always, ever. But I think what's done here and what we're allowed to see, even in the the restored cut. What's the one after the Lionsgate cut? The really good one? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's the one I watched for this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get, a pickaxe through the head, out the eye, through the chest, through the front and the back of the chest. I feel like it gets used just enough for me. I think in the next movie, if there was one, I would want to see more or different. But the pickaxe is threatening enough for me in this. It's immediately iconic and tied in with the killer. It makes perfect sense. The kills that don't use a pickaxe are also really fucking clever and cool for my money.
Yeah, all the kills that don't use a pickaxe are way better for me. The shower head, I really love the shower head scene.
Yeah.
And when Howard gets killed, he gets hung off screen. And that annoys me because I hate that character and I want to watch him be in pain.
Right.
Obviously, we get to watch his body get dismembered, but he's already dead at that point, so it doesn't really count.
Sure. How do you feel about being drowned in a pot of hot dogs?
I think
boiling hot dog water.
That's kind of lame, right? That's a lame kill.
I don't like any boiling water kills really in movies. I've found this in my years of watching horror movies. It doesn't hit. Like, I don't know what it is. There's just something that... It's horrible, obviously. The idea of it happening in reality is awful, but it never lands in a movie.
Yeah.
And the fact that there were hot dogs in the pan actually kind of saved it for me because it was silly.
Yeah.
And I felt like that's such a degrading way to die. It's not just the hot water, it's hot dog water that you're drowning in. I thought it was quite cool. I
really rate the Hollis kill. He gets like shot in the head with a nail gun twice.
Very cool.
And I love that he doesn't just die. Like most slasher movies would be like, okay, he's been shot. That means you're instantly dead because that's how bullets work, right?
Yeah.
In movies. But he doesn't just die. He stumbles around because obviously his brain has been affected, but you still have motor functions.
Yeah, his brain's been a bit interrupted by nails in it, but he's still alive, which, like you say, a character that I think most people by that point in the movie love, getting nail gunned in the head. Yeah, it's really brutal.
Yeah, I hate Hollis. Did you know that? I hate everything about him.
I did not know that.
His look, his whole shtick. I'm not a fan.
Weird, because you're cosplaying him every day of your 30s.
He didn't have a beard. He just had the mustache.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you were braver, maybe you could achieve such greatness.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Get
that beard off.
I'm not doing that. Yeah, the hot dog water kill, it's just a profoundly uncinematic way to die.
How do you mean? profoundly uncinematic. Ebert alert. What are you talking about?
I just think like it's cool to put a camera at the bottom of a pot and show someone getting killed in the bottom like that, but it just doesn't look good.
It does with hot dogs floating in it. That's what saves that shot. Honestly, it is. Take the hot dogs out, and you've just got fucking, I don't know, another boring Halloween 2 kill.
Yeah. I don't hate Hollis, by the way. Just in case anyone didn't get that. Anyone out there didn't get that.
Yeah.
I didn't.
If you... Anyone out there who doesn't get that has just never seen you. So time to do your research.
Yeah.
What do you think about Mabel's death? The washing machine, the dryer. My apologies.
The dryer stuff is fine. Like that's obviously whatever. But the stuff leading up to her kill, where she's being stalked by the miner, by what we believe to be Harry Warden at that point, is probably my favorite stuff in the movie.
Ooh, nice. Tell me everything.
It's shot really dynamically. There's that really intense close up of her eyes, and it really sells the fear. Like she's screaming and trying to escape, and like we never really get to see what we assume at that point to be Harry Warden, and like obviously the kill happens off screen. We don't see the penetration of the pickaxe, and that might be a censorship. That might be just that they thought maybe pickaxing this sweet old lady might be a bridge too far. I don't know, but it feels cool. It's in a really good setting. Obviously, we talked, was it a couple of weeks ago, about how much we love laundrettes?
Yeah, dude. I knew you were going to be all over this little laundrette.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a really cool place to set a kill. I think that's one of the things that I really liked about this movie is that...
What do you make of...
Go on.
That specific... I was going to say, what do you make of the actual reveal of the body? Clunking around, hanging out the dryer.
I mean, that looks great. I mean, the effect isn't amazing, but it sells it. It's the same as like the Happy's little poking eyeball that's sort of jiggling around on the end of the pickaxe. Like it looks shit, but it sells the moment really well. And
Happy's eye hanging out on that pickaxe. Honestly, one of my favorite slasher kills. Like, I love that. Everything about that ticks my boxes. I thought Mabel's reveal was pretty brutal when you actually strip it back and you think, like, she is quite literally the nice old lady that everyone likes. And she's also, like, got this, like, secret crush on the sheriff, we find out later, and she's just cool as hell. And she gets pickaxed and then burned up in a dryer. It's really dark. But with these kills in this movie, I don't think it hammers home how dark it is. It's almost presented in this like just pretty bare, naked, here it is, next kind of light, which I really like. Really like a serious economy of movement in terms of how these kills go from situation to situation. Tight budget probably, but also stylistically cool.
I respect that you like that, but I think for me that removes some of the stakes.
Definitely, yeah. The stakes are only there for me because I genuinely love this cast. I really, really enjoy all of their personalities and how they work together in the film.
That's bonkers
I'm
to
set
me.
up for that.
Because
Why?
The idea that this gang of miners with an E are all gaga about going to the fucking Valentine's dance. Do you know what I mean?
Listen, but that's why it's so cool. This is like a really gritty, middle of nowhere, Nova Scotia town where there is just a mine. There's a mine, a laundromat, maybe like a general store. The young people in this town don't have much going for them. It's a really working class scenario, which is unusual in my experience of slashers. So the town has bags of grit and soul, and it feels really lived in. It feels incredibly real. And then you've got these kids are just dying for a good time. So they're super pumped about the Valentine's dance, obviously. First one in 20 years, they're shaking off the curse. That's where the stakes are for me, is that they're really invested in it. And several of them are really in love, and convincingly so on screen. So that really built an atmosphere where there was something to lose. And that makes a great antagonist in a slasher movie. The guy who's ruining the party is genuinely to be feared because he's coming with a vengeance, and it's a really important thing that's happening that's going to get destroyed. So I was pretty much 100% all in on that wacky little cast.
Yeah, so I really believe Patty's relationship with Hollis, right?
Okay.
But I don't believe Hollis's relationship with Patty. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Like,
no, not at all.
so every time we see her with him, or even like
Yeah.
in with other characters where she's like talking about her relationship, or even just her generally, she like really sells the relationship, and I don't think he even looks at her in the entire movie. Any moment where they're together and she's like kissing him and stuff, she's like behind him kissing him on like the top of the head. I feel like he never makes eye contact with her in the movie at all.
But yeah, he's got like there's a definite kind of buffer there. There's a bit of distance. But don't you think that's cool? That's such a fun dynamic for a slasher movie couple to have. They're not just all over each other constantly, type A. They're not at loggerheads and arguing and bickering and then making up, type B. And they're not like breaking up and getting back together, type C. He is a fully rounded, no pun intended, character in this movie, because he has depth and dimension. You can tell there's something going on in that relationship, that he has barriers up a little bit, and he's not 100% willing to drop that and just be all lovey-dovey around everyone. It makes it so believable to me.
Okay.
You just don't like that he's not fucking getting in there and pumping ass.
No, I just don't.
You want to see Hollis get laid? That's what you're saying, right?
I mean, it's nice to have something to aspire to.
It's nice to see yourself represented in movies.
Yeah. There are enough chubby white guys with big mustaches in
getting laid in mining towns in Nova Scotia for my liking.
Yeah.
Representation, people.
The town, both the towns where I grew up, the mines were closed by the time I was of age. So, but this could have been me easily.
It could still be you, bud. Don't give up. But that's my take on Hollis is that it's a pretty nuanced performance, in my opinion. I really like what that couple brings to the couple's dynamic. You got a love triangle, you got a really in love couple, and then you've got this slightly jank weird couple who it's lovely to see them on screen every time. I think it's a great pair. But there's always an edge, and I really like that. It makes it feel more real. There's something really gritty and real about a lot of those group dynamic scenarios that you just don't get in other slashers, really, apart from stuff like The Burning, in my opinion. Yeah.
Hollis looks so much like John Candy.
Yeah, it could have been a John Candy role if there was more comedy in it, but I'm glad it's who it is, and I kind of love it. I think
it's weird because
definitely Candy vibes.
The actor Keith Knight doesn't look anything like John Candy.
Not really, no. Yeah.
So it's
a tiny bit.
It's weird that, like, I don't know, you slap that moustache on him. I almost said a weird moustache then, and I was like, I had to not say that because it's literally my moustache. But you slap this moustache on him, and like
slap this fucking dumb moustache on him.
Yeah. And the hat,
the
and it's pure candy. It's crazy.
And some of the hats he wears, some of the outfits, we're used to seeing Candy kind of bundled up in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
It's a pretty Candy-esque look to people of our generation, I think.
It's weird how much, and I'd never really considered this before, but it's weird how autumnal John Candy as a person is.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Definitely autumn and winter.
Yeah.
I get candy cravings those times of year for obvious movies and obvious reasons. Canada, dude. A lot of these people that we associate strongly with Canada have a good track record of cold, dark, wintry movies.
Well, I've got a question for you, actually, Sam. Important question.
Go on then, you fucking lad.
Explain the opening scene to me.
Oh, easy. He bangs her in the mine.
Why is she in the mine? Who is she?
All questions that remain unanswered, which is great. Come on. We get this opening scene of two miners, right, in the mine, and they've got their headlamps on. We got the credits going. We're getting some establishing shots, some crookedy, windy passages down in the mines. And then, what? One of the miners takes off their helmet, and it's just some stacked broad. Interesting reveal. Okay? And then the other guy keeps his mining gear on, cops a feel, and kills her.
It's a cool kill because I like the idea of, forgive me for saying this, but her being penetrated from behind.
You are not forgiven. I think it's a clever and very self-aware slasher opening because when it happens, you're like, fucking should have seen that coming. But you didn't. So it's, oh, hello. So it's great. I think it works really well. It's obviously sexy. She's stroking the hose of his respirator while while he leans in. It's just very on the nose. It totally sets up what you think is going to be the tone of the movie, but I think it's a subtle MacGuffin. I think it gives you something trashy to lead you in, and then you get something a lot more loving and caring and crafted. And I think that's one of the interesting dualities of the movie, is that it kind of juxtaposes that trashy violence and the nonsense of Valentine's Day with some very real heart. I think that's a very cool thing that this movie does well.
I just don't understand, again, the logistics of it.
I love how you're just suddenly working in logistics for the Canadian government. Since when have you ever cared about logistics in any movie ever? I didn't hear you say logistics once in Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers.
That's because the logistics is all laid out for you.
No, not true. Go on, carry on. What don't you get about the logistics of this mine bang?
The logistics in Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers is this chainsaw cult have one chainsaw between them, and they use it in every shot. That's the logistics of that movie.
Good logistics.
I think the reason that logistics are so important to me in this movie is because I'm not as bought in as I am with a lot of the other movies that we watch.
So you're focusing more on detail,
yeah,
and problems, right? But what's the problem with these logistics specifically? The mine scenario.
No women allowed in the mine. We've established that.
But she's covered. She sneaks in.
But why?
You can't tell she's a woman. To bang! They're not there to work.
To bang
They're
who?
pulling overtime. To bang Axel.
But Axel's got a girlfriend.
I know. Who cares? That's why
Axel cares.
That's why it's seedy as hell. That undermines his whole. It casts his obsession with his girlfriend, his fidelity, in a whole new light later on when you find out who it is. It's a seedy sneak off kill. He's luring her in, and then he kills her in a mine.
All right.
And he needs to kill someone early in the movie to harvest her heart, to put in a box to start the warnings about the dance, doesn't he? So he picks some broad he doesn't care about, some blonde, and he lures her down into the mine with the promise of kinky mask sex, and then he fucking kills her and cuts out her heart. It's a cracking opening to a slasher.
How does he kill her?
He pushes her back.
He penetrates her from behind, Sam. Come on.
He penetrates her from behind, sure. Yes, he does. Good from you. So I just think it works, and it is especially good because you don't get it when it happens. And then when you see the heart, you're like, oh, shit, okay. And then when you find out who it is, you think, fuck me, all the way back to the beginning. That's really interesting. I just like it.
Yeah.
I'm not hung up on but where's the pump truck that they rode down in? Who was operating the lift? I'm not worried about that.
So, I don't care about that level of detail, but we know that women aren't allowed in the mine. And
that's why it's sexy and sordid. He snuck her in.
I think it undermines the power of the party in the mine at the end, if anyone's just sneaking in at any time.
But it plays perfectly into that logistically because it proves that people can sneak into the mine. It fixes your logistical issue.
I don't think it does. I think the only reason that people can sneak into the mine at the end is because the son of the mine owner, who is at direct odds with Axel in the entire movie, it's like, hey, let's have the party at the mine. The worst idea anyone's ever had, by the way.
I think it's a great idea.
It's a great idea if you're 12. I would love to have a party in a mine when I was 12, but when I'm how old are these guys? 47? I'm not like, oh, the Valentine's dance has been cancelled. So me, 47-year-old fucking TJ Axel,
they're like 21. Come
is
on.
so mad about this. Let's go have a party at the mine. You know, the mine where people died 20 years ago, and there's almost definitely going to be a methane explosion that we've talked about loads, which doesn't fucking happen, and that's annoying.
I tell you what's great, though. It speaks to just how horribly dead-end this town is. It really does. The town is obviously not painted to be a place of upward mobility for the young population.
No.
These guys are pretty much trapped in the mine, and they're probably going to die working, which is savage. And their only place they can go to have a party when they're forbidden from doing it at the fucking Legion or wherever they are is the mine where they work. It's so dark. It works perfectly.
These are all adults with full-time jobs the only industry probably in this whole town, right?
Yeah, realistically.
So in theory, they all have houses where they live.
Yeah, but they'll get busted.
For-
Too easy. Tiny, small town. You can't do it in invisibility. They've got sheriffs driving around the streets keeping an eye out for shit like that. They're actively trying to stop it. No one's going to think, hey, we better go check to see if they're partying in the mine.
Do you know why?
It's the perfect crime.
Do you know why they wouldn't check? Because it's the dumbest place to have a party.
Oh, okay. So the dumbest place to have a secret party is the one place the sheriff won't check. All right, Jamie, king of the party logistics. I think you just proved your own point wrong there, bud. Best place for this party is mineshaft number 2. Let's go, gang. Get that pump track going.
Can we talk about how this is a Final Transmission first?
What?
The first movie we've covered with a harmonica duel.
The first horror movie that we've covered on the Final Transmission podcast, I can almost guarantee, where we have a novelty end credit song that we can both agree is fucking brilliant. Surely.
I like it.
Here we go.
I think the soundtrack of this movie generally is soundtracked by some really good Canadian country music.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that the end credit song is a folk song rather than a country song, I would rather live in the world where we get the country song at the end, but it's still a good song.
Where are you getting this shit? It's the weirdest criticism I've ever heard in my life.
It's not criticism.
It's a beautiful murder ballad.
Like, it's good. I just would rather
You
have.
love murder ballads.
I do love murder ballads, particularly the album
And
by
you
Nick
love-
Cave. But
And you love end credit songs.
yeah, where they recount
specifically
the plot
spell
of
out
the
the
movie.
plot of the movie.
Yeah, I love
These are your
that.
favorite things.
But imagine you get like that sort of Canadian country voice singing it. Like it's literally a Canadian country music artist who sings it.
Yeah.
But he sings it in that sort of 60s folk style rather than in his normal voice. And I feel a bit robbed by that, is what I mean.
I thought it sounded pretty quintessentially Canadian to me. I don't know. I'd need to listen to it again, I guess. What I loved about it is that it kind of pointed out to me the whole movie is a murder ballad. The whole movie from front to back is a classic folk tale. It's a story of a down and out dead end town that suffered terrible tragedy and tries to pull itself out of that with a celebration. And the celebration is absolutely and completely destroyed by a string of fucking crazy murders by a miner. This town just keeps getting hammered. The town has a personality. The characters all inhabit it in a way that feels like they literally live there. It feels quintessentially Nova Scotian. These guys cooking their dinner on their fucking engine.
I love that.
Out in what just looks like a scrapyard. Like everything in this movie that characterizes the town is done exceptionally well because it doesn't feel forced. It feels like it's presented in a way that's wholly believable and just threaded in expertly. It's not novelty. It's not done for shtick. It's just woven in there that this place is dead and these kids are gonna die, but it's done so in a really quintessentially Canadian way, and I think it has just a gigantic heart. Love that shit.
Like you mentioned before that like you think this movie really sells the town as a place. I don't know if I agree with that, but
Right.
the bits that we do get do feel pretty fleshed out, and like the characters do feel like they do sort of exist in a place. There are a bunch of things about the town that do make me sort of, I don't know, flay off any of the flesh that we do get, like the radio station called QPID and stuff like that it's just sort of dumb. And the idea that a town called Valentine Bluffs would really lean into Valentine's Day when it's just, it's just the name of the town.
Yeah.
Like it seems unlikely to me that, a small mining town in Nova Scotia would really lean into that.
Yeah, but for me that works both ways because it just makes it so tragic. It's obviously never going to be a tourist destination. It's not going to be like people getting married at Niagara Falls, or it has nothing going for it except this name. So they're going to try and milk it and they're going to try and make something of it, and then everyone gets killed. It's so sad.
Yeah.
And it feels like a great comment on a failed attempt at Americanization almost. you know, in America, the town that has Valentine in the name would have 6 cheesy Valentine motels. Everything would be Valentine this. You'd have a whole souvenir shop.
Yeah.
It would be commodified to the point of just being sickening. Whereas here, they've tried and they've done it in a really Canadian way, and it hasn't worked. And what they're left with is kind of a veneer of, a meaningless holiday.
Yeah.
Something that nobody really gives a shit about. And that's what's great about how that works with the whole movie. It ends up being a movie that no one really gives a shit about. It's not given the due that it deserves, despite being, in my opinion, cool as fuck. So feels like an underdog movie, feels like an underdog town, underdog cast, just by virtue of being Canadian alone, and then you get all these other layers. I read, and I don't know if this is true, but I read that nobody in the movie knew who the killer was going to be. So even...
Well, I think that... I think I read that as well, and the guy that plays Axel knew that it was going to be him because it says in the script that the killer gets his arm ripped off, and they fitted him for a prosthetic arm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So he was like...
Well, that changes it a bit, because I thought it was pretty cool because I read that even Axel didn't know, and that meant that
I think they
his
weren't
performance
explicitly
was
told.
totally oblivious. Right.
So they didn't know, but he was like, it says here in the script that the killer gets his arm ripped off, and you put a prosthetic arm on me, so I reckon it's probably me.
Right. Could be.
Yeah. Like, I think that's cool. A thing that I think...
Wait, why do they put... There's nothing shot after he gets his arm cut off. Why do they... Oh, you mean to have it cut off, it has to be a prosthetic?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's weird, because his body is totally off screen.
Yeah.
There's no... don't know. Again, a lot of mystery and a lot of conflicting reports about the movie. There's loads of stuff about how they found the town and wanted to shoot in the mine, so the town spent loads of money making the mine look really nice, and then they had to spend loads of money making it look terrible again.
Yeah.
You know, some of that stuff sounds almost unbelievable. So it has a bit of folklore to it.
That sort of thing happens quite a lot. Like, I've heard of that in similar situations for other movies as well. I can't quite think of which ones off the top of my head, but like...
Yeah.
I want to talk about the cops in this movie.
Go on then, lad. Have your swing at the popo.
I think these are my favourite movie cops. Horror movie cops. They are just working guys in their small town. They're not hassling people. They actively don't want crimes to happen. They're not dicks about it. They're just working people in this small town full of working people. And I really rate it. They actually try and do stuff. They actually try and stop the crimes from happening.
Yep. They don't do a bad job either.
Yeah, they're not terrible people. They don't mess with the protagonists. They're just in the background, diligently trying to not let murders happen. And I have to respect it.
Do you think they're well presented characters in terms of, script, acting, the things they do in the movie? Do you rate them as actual movie characters?
I think so. The chief more than anyone, or like the sheriff or whatever he is. I think he's maybe a bit naive. Obviously, he was around when the previous killings were happening, so he completely understood the removed hearts in candy boxes thing, and he didn't blink when someone handed him a Valentine's Day heart with blood leaking out of it. He was like, "Ooh, somebody likes me," but. That's a bit, naive.
His reaction when he opened that box is possibly the only weak point in the movie. It's such a weird reaction. He just kind of looks up and goes, "Not again." Oh, it's really weak. Strangely pitched reaction to having a fucking human heart in your lap in the truck when you thought it was going to be chocolates.
I assume that there's no crime in this town.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And that's why he's so lovably naive, I think.
Yeah.
He's basically retired, do you know what I mean? He's not doing it. Busting up brawls at the saloon after after the miners get rowdy.
Yeah,
he knows them all. He knows everyone by name.
Yeah. A couple too many moose heads and those miners are getting a bit leery.
How great is the constant and ever-present image of the Moosehead lager in this film?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's not a very nice lager, though. I'm sorry.
Dude, we have to address the elephant in the room here. Canadian lager isn't very good.
No.
I was so excited my whole life to try a Molson, because Molson obviously sponsors everything to do with hockey. It's ubiquitous in Canadian culture. I had one in Belfast last year. I had a few in Belfast last year, and it was horrible piss. And I had Moosehead when I was younger. I think it was a thing in pubs for a while, right?
It was, yeah. I think they had it in Wetherspoons.
Yeah, that explains it. Yeah, and again, just like a bit groshy, but even worse. I don't know. Not great.
Yeah. Although I've looped back on lager lately, so maybe I would like it again.
Well, I'm going to be drinking a ton of Molson this very weekend in Northern Ireland, and I'll be able to report back as to whether or not it's got any better.
Okay.
We'll see. But I love the image of it, and it's great that they don't replace it with, a stock beer or an American beer or something. That's the thing that made me think, right, well, this is obviously meant to be set in Canada. This could just be Anywheresville, border US, it could be like Buffalo or somewhere, but it's not. It's definitely Nova Scotia.
Yeah, I wonder if they either didn't have the money to be like, we'll create our own beer, or whether Big Moosehead is in the pocket of the propaganda wing of the Canadian government, and it's like, we'll give you X amount of dollars to include Moosehead in your movie.
That's got to be it, because they use an empty box when they don't need to. It's not just like they have a couple of beers at a party. You see it a lot. So it's got to be a bit of a product placement deal. And I, for one, 100% back that, because it gives it a sense of place, which otherwise it's a little bit nebulous without.
Yeah.
Anchors it firmly in Nova Scotia.
It's possible that also the sense of pride and like support that the Canadian government offers to the arts, maybe they also just think of the same for homegrown Canadian businesses of any kind.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's just like, we support Moosehead. I don't know if they're owned by fucking Heineken or Diageo or something, but
maybe not in 81.
Yeah. So maybe they're just like, they're a Canadian company. We represent Canada. Love that.
Go Moosehead.
Yeah.
So I thought while I was watching this, I was obviously sort of fully in slasher mode, and I was really enjoying a lot of slasher conventions and a lot of stuff that felt like it was really scratching a deep slasher itch in my life.
Yeah.
But there were some things that happened that I thought were genuinely clever. There was some foreshadowing in this movie that was both visual, verbal, and kind of atmospheric, and it really worked from where I was sitting. Did you find any of that interesting at all? Did you spot any foreshadowing or anything that kind of tickled your pickle?
Not necessarily foreshadowing, but a thing that I really liked in the the mine climax at the end. It's just some really interesting and subtle storytelling through actions that I thought was good. So it's a cool image when the miner is walking down the mine just smashing all the light bulbs, because in early slasher films, even a lot of slasher films that didn't address like the logistics of the slasher stuff that's going on behind the scenes, like you never got to see a slasher doing something that would affect the situation around them. You would
the off-screen life of the killer.
And so that's just cool. And what it actually does, it's interesting in the storytelling, is it puts everybody in miners' helmets. So it means that you're then in a position where you don't know if the person coming around the corner, as the audience and as the person in the movie, as a character, you don't know if the person coming around the corner is your mate or is the killer, or maybe they're both, because we don't know that yet. And I think that was really a really cool device to unseat and unsettle you a little bit and make you think about the people that are there, and maybe maybe the miner isn't a mysterious third party. Maybe it is someone that we know because we've all got these hats on. We all look a little bit like the killer from a distance. So it gives it that anonymity. It's also just a really cool lighting effect. Everything in the mine looks great to me. They couldn't use proper Hollywood lighting because it would blow up all the real methane that was in the mines. So they're creative and they work around it, and it gives the characters a way to be in even deeper jeopardy, because like you said, who's going to walk around a corner and accidentally kill their best mate because they're all wearing miners' helmets? That's what slashers have taught us to look out for. So it does that, and then it subverts it. I think it's very clever. I think the mine stuff generally is a little bit hampered by the fact that they shot in a real mine, because it means that it doesn't look as cool as I want it to. They're going for like almost a Kubrickian like labyrinth type situation, but it isn't visually interesting enough because it's a real mine. It's just
very dark.
Yeah, it's sort of like the thing where, if I shot a person in the head in real life, it wouldn't look anywhere near as cool as it does in a movie. And so I'd rather have the movie version of that.
Good. The only reason Jamie doesn't shoot people in the head is because it looks cooler in movies.
Yeah. What I would do if I was going to shoot someone, I would squib them up first.
So if Jamie ever comes around your house and starts taping something to your head, you're going to die.
Yeah.
I think I agree to an extent with the mine. I think because it's so obviously real, it adds to that layer of realism that I enjoy about the movie. But if you're looking for like big thick cobwebs and old styrofoam beams falling down everywhere and stuff, which is a really fun Scooby-Doo mine, I love that kind of stuff as well, then yeah, there's a lot of scope to say a set might have been as fun, maybe more fun, but the realism is what wins for me.
Well, I think the issue is when the realism of the mine is juxtaposed against, like, say, the little avalanche that like traps Axel at the end. That looks like a bunch of styrofoam rocks falling from a ceiling in a real mine. It's sort of like, do you know in those old Hanna-Barbera cartoons where it's like, oh, we need to go get a book off this shelf, and you know exactly which book they're getting because it's the one that's been animated completely differently to all the rest.
Coloured in, yeah.
So like,
yeah,
it almost looks like that. It almost, everything that isn't real is immediately obvious because it's like,
right,
it really stands out from the realism of the background. And
yeah, maybe if I was watching closer, I'd have noticed that. But to be honest, by that point in the film, I was all in on what the fuck was going to happen next. That chaotic ending, I think, worked for me because it became so unpredictable. I didn't see him chopping off his own arm and then running away saying, "Happy Valentine's Day, baby," or whatever he says. It's so fun.
That is fun, but it's fucking dumb, right?
I don't think it's dumb. I honestly don't think it's dumb. I think it's really creepy and really funny. It's the perfect balance. Like, he hacks off his own arm.
Well, he has to, because
and then he runs away gibbering. Like, it's really fun.
When I'm talking about some of the logistics and some of the stuff around like that character that doesn't work for me, and that reveal is pre the reveal, he is able to present himself as a completely normal guy, except when he's killing people. As soon as we are made aware that he's the killer, suddenly he is incapable of being a normal person and is gibbering about Valentine's Day to nobody while running down a mine shaft where he presumably will stay forever.
Yeah, but he's caught at that point, so it's he reveals his psycho side. He's got nothing to hide behind anymore. The mask has been pulled away. It's that great moment where the killer gets to finally be who they are.
Yeah, but like, and
in his case, bonkers.
But we're meant to believe that he has this personality and is able to completely hide that for 20 years until
that's what I think.
Until somebody is like, "Oh, you're a killer," and he's like, "Oh, finally, I get to be me, my authentic self."
He's living his best life down in that mine forever. I think there's a lot of ways that you could kind of extrapolate that and form your own opinion. And I think that's what's really fun about it. And that's, to me, what's fun about slashers is the speculation.
Yeah.
Because he could have some kind of deeply buried personality that he's not even aware of that just erupts. He could have some kind of split personality thing going on. He could have just finally snapped. There's a million things that could be going on there that we don't know. All we see is one outburst of anger at the party and a little scuffle. He doesn't seem unreasonably rageful or totally unbalanced.
Well, that's my pickle, really, is that until the reveal, and this is maybe an issue with not knowing who the killer is when you're the cast, is that nobody plays it like there's a killer. Nobody. Yeah, but there's nothing in the script that suggests that any one of them could be the killer. It's just we're a bunch of normal people, and here's a flashback, and that's what I think is my issue with that. Is if they'd hammed up like any one of us could be the killer, like I could fucking kill you, bro, or whatever, or watch what you do with that pickaxe, guy, or whatever, like anything like that, to just sell the idea that one of them could be the killer, or that every single one of them could be the killer. They all do something that moves suspicion, even as a viewer, because we all know that the killer is meant to be the killer until he's not, until it's like, oh, he's the killer, and the guy that we thought the killer was dead for 5 years or whatever. It's just I just think that not leaning into the whodunit stuff makes it feel kind of cheap at the end. It just sort of feels like a cheap twist for no discernible reason.
It's a shame that that's how it lands with you, because I honestly thought it would have been a different experience. For me, it's that you just don't need that with this friendship group. You don't need the suspicion. It completely ruins the whole dynamic to bring that in, to make it a whodunit among the friends.
Yeah.
They won't behave the way that they do in the movie the whole way through. So it's way more arresting and visceral to me to find out it was one of them all along, one of the inner circle, one of the trusted guys. That's way more jarring and way more interesting to me than a knowing glance and a suggestive shot of a pickaxe. That would cheapen it for my money. I think what they've done is they've created a really dynamic friendship group and not fucked with it on purpose to make it all the more devastating that it was one of them all along. I think it's heartbreaking.
I see how that would be cool. I don't think that they do that very well in the movie. Like it doesn't sell it for me. It becomes a cheap twist rather than a gut shot. And I think it's because Friday the 13th, spoilers for Friday the fucking 13th here, guys. But in Friday the 13th, when we believe it's Jason the whole time and it's revealed that it's actually Jason's mum, that is heartbreaking.
I don't know if it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely next level terror, in my opinion.
Well, I
it
think
becomes
when you think
a totally
about it,
different film in that moment.
Yeah, when you think about it, the idea that like this mum is avenging her dead child for the horrors that were inflicted upon him by this group of people.
Yeah, it's very dark.
Yeah, like that becomes like heartbreaking to me. Whereas I don't see that here because this is a guy who's killing his mates and anyone else around them because he saw someone kill his dad 20 years ago. And like,
that's way more solid than the entire premise of Friday the 13th. Like, that's a much more solid killer motivation.
It could be.
Yeah.
But it isn't.
Why?
Because it isn't handled in a way that is more interesting, I don't think. It isn't handled in a way that's more solid. It's literally just like, you think the killer is this guy, but wait, here's 3 seconds of footage, and now your entire mind has been changed, but for no good reason.
I think they give you all the reason you need. Saw his dad killed by a miner, became the miner. I don't need any more than that. The only thing that elevates Friday the 13th above other slasher movies, in my opinion, is that Pamela Voorhees sequence at the end of the first one. Without that, we could be in for possibly one of the most disposable horror movies of all time. Up until that, there's some good shit in Friday the 13th. Don't get me wrong. I love the franchise, but until Pamela Voorhees pops on screen and delivers that fucking performance, that monologue, has her head chopped off, and then kind of carries on living through her sweater in the second movie. You know, she holds the whole fucking thing together for my money.
Yeah.
So this movie lacks the cinematic chops to have that stuff happen. All the shots of Pamela Voorhees are incredible. All the close-up facial stuff, the voice work, everything. So yeah, it lacks that totally. But it just delivers in different ways for me. If there's a movie by movie comparison of holding the two up against each other, maybe Friday the 13th squeaks it, but only because of that. Literally just because of old Pam.
Well, I think like they're both dealing with this idea of like trauma, right? And this old trauma coming back up.
Yeah.
And I just think that Friday the 13th handles it so much better.
I think the only weird thing is that Axel doesn't say anything when the reveal happens, which to me at the time I was like, well, surely you would say something or react or do something. But because he doesn't, it's a little bit more ominous. And then when he does speak facelessly running away in the mine, it just makes it creepier. It almost delays the gratification of the reveal a little bit, which I like. But I think that he can't give a speech or a monologue because it's at the end of this frantic chase. He's besieged at that point. He's pretty much done for. So it works for me. But yeah, I mean, Pamela Voorhees, he ain't. No one's ever going to say that he, Ajax. Wait, what's his fucking name? Axel. You said Ajax. It's in my head now. Axel is a classic slasher villain. The miner, yeah, absolutely for my money, but not him. He's not fantastic.
Well, I think like on top of the 3-second flashback, other characters talk about it like it's been a thing the whole time. They're like, oh yeah, it was 20 years ago that he watched his dad die. It's like, well, you knew that. It seemed like it was conveniently held from the audience in order to drop it as exposition at the very end, and it just didn't. Yeah, it didn't sell it to me. Like, but I do.
So who is it that actually reveals it? Is it the sheriff?
Yeah, like we see the flashback.
Like, oh, of course, it was 20 years ago. He saw. Yeah. Yeah, again, it worked for me because it just made me think like that's just something he legit forgot. Like, his character would forget that and wouldn't see the relevance. He doesn't understand what trauma could do to a kid. He's grown up fine. He's gone to work in the mine. He'll be all right. Whoops,
So
these
miners that constantly rib each other about everything, shower together and everything, and they're constantly...
Oh, they're not going to go to fucking your dad got killed by a miner as a joke, like...
Like people are being killed by the miner, and his dad got killed.
Like
by
when
the
your dad got killed by the...
Surely they'd be like, "Are you okay, mate? Is this
no,
bringing
they're
up
miners. They're tough Nova Scotia hard men. That's the only reason it works.
Some of them
if it was
are
a bunch
women.
of self-aware California teens, then sure. But we're led to believe these are men's men, and they're boisterous, and they're rambunctious, and they're out for a good time. They're not going to be like, oh, buddy, 20 years ago. And I don't think they know. I don't think the other miners know. I think just the sheriff knows.
I think then they failed at capturing the true spirit of a small town.
Why?
Because everybody
they're
knows
not
everything.
Complete dicks. Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe, again, playing into your good cop theory, maybe he just kept his lips sealed. He kept that information in a locked drawer and let the boy live his life. Let the boy grow into a man and hoped for the best. Clean the slate. Another act of compassion from a good cop.
Yeah, from the Canadian Mounted Police Force.
Yep.
Do you think this movie would be improved by Mounties?
Fictional Mounties without the historical baggage, yeah, obviously. There's no scenario I don't think would be improved by a Mountie, to be honest. I want to see a bunch of Mountie strippers. I think that would be incredible.
Yeah? The full Mountie?
Fuck yeah. The full Mountie. Yes. Let's fucking go.
I feel like that was a setup for me to say that.
It absolutely wasn't. Well played. And again, not a mine joke, but a good working class steel town joke you just slipped in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mounties are absurdly iconic. Like the way they look is obviously like lends itself really well to a visual form of storytelling and an inflated sense of heroism for a group of people that existed to displace native people. But fuck that. Like they look cool. The Mountie, the wrestler. What a guy.
Yeah. Good
Mountie.
Should we take a break and come back and finish off? Give our final thoughts and send these Canucks on their way?
Yeah, let's do it.
Will you give it up, man? Nobody's out there. We're alone. Oh no, there's somebody out there. I'm picking up all this crosstalk.
Oh, I'm back. Are you back already?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm ready. I'm back already and ready.
Well, let's wrap this box of chocolates up, tie a bow on it, and give it to your beloved. Jamie, sum up and rate the movie My Bloody Valentine.
So, I mean, I've said a lot of things through the course of this episode about the film My Bloody Valentine. I mean, obviously, it's a podcast. It would be pretty shit if it was just me silent and you going, oh, I loved it every 25 seconds.
And if you want that, join the Patreon and Jamie will give you the cut of the podcast where it's just me talking.
I'm happy to do it. If it'll make us some money, I'll do it.
Right.
I have a lot of problems with this movie. I think it doesn't really hang together. I think it's pretty clear to me why it doesn't hit some of the echelons of the other slashers that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Why it isn't mentioned and considered in the same realms as some of those other standalone slashers, like we talked about, like Black Christmas or The Burning or later things. One thing that I do really like is I like the urban legend and the idea that somebody is killing based on this urban legend. And is it the person from the urban legend, or is it somebody impersonating the urban legend for their own ends? Or, I mean, it turns out to not be that either. But that's a thing that I think is interesting in slasher movies, and more interesting to me than like, oh, it's Jason or it's Michael Myers and they're back for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like legacy, and that's why the Scream movies work so well, is that like it's all about legacy and like continuing on the story and making these folk stories in the town of Woodsboro continue happening, or in the town of Valentine Bluff keep happening. In theory, this could have been a franchise in this if it was approached in the same way as like a Scream, where every couple of years the miner came back, and maybe it was the miner himself, maybe it was, fucking Tommy Jarvis, who knows? But like,
yeah,
like that could have worked, and I rate that, and I think this is probably the first of the slashers to really do that. I mean, obviously it happens in Friday the 13th, and then they backpedal in the sequels. So I don't count Friday the 13th as doing that, because
no, it doesn't at all.
I live in the future.
It barely does it in any other Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah.
It fucks it up every single time. Yeah,
Like
this does tee up a sequel and not deliver, which is really interesting.
Yeah, well, I not even the teeing up a sequel is what I mean, but like the idea that like there's an urban legend about, Cropsey or whatever,
Sure.
and the person killing is using that urban legend as a screen for their killing, which isn't quite what's happening here anyway, because he's only killing because he saw the miner killing.
Yeah.
And like I say, they do that in Friday the 13th, but then they roll back on it so hard by just bringing Jason back from the dead for
nonsense.
9 more movies, 10 if you count Freddy vs. Jason.
Mm-hmm.
12
Where
if you
he's literally brought back from what, hell?
Yeah. 12 if you count the Marcus Nispel remake. So yeah, this film does a bunch of things that I'm not super stoked about. It undersells the twist ending in a way that makes it pointless. I think the stakes aren't necessarily there, but I do have a lot of fun with all the stuff that's happening in between. A lot of the kills are fun. Like I said, the pickaxe gets a bit boring after a while. I really love the pickaxe through the head, up through the head when in Happy, and
Looks like it feels really nice.
yeah, and like I say, I love the shower head kill. It's just so violent and like mean spirited, and it just like what did she do to deserve this specifically brutal death, rather than 10 of the other 12 people that get killed or whatever, they just get a pickaxe to the chest, and she gets picked up and shoved onto a shower head, and then a shower through her body.
And I think if you rewatch the movie, you'll see why she deserves that. Some great foreshadowing on her death. Do you remember how she's introduced in the movie, how she meets her boyfriend?
Like, doesn't he pick her up in the same way? Yeah.
Picks her up by the head. And at the time you're looking at it, you're like, that's a cute little thing that couple does. And then that's how she fucking dies.
Like,
that's masterful slasher work.
Like, it's cool, but why does she deserve that when other people just get...
Well, watch the subtle dynamics between the two characters in the movie. Now you know who did it. It's just cool. It's just clever. Anyway, carry on slagging it off and then give it 3 out of 10. Go on.
But like I said, I do have a lot of fun with it. I think like the dynamics of the friend group is fun. The performances are, Canadian film from 1981, but I like that. The look of the film is also Canadian film from 1981. I looked at the cinematographer to see if he directed every single Canadian film from that time, and he didn't. So I wonder if there is a specific film stock that they had access to with this specific budget, or with the specific money that they were given. If there was like a Canadian company that made film stock, and the government were like, you have to use these, because all of these films look the same style of lighting, the same grain. It's weird. Like, obviously,
definitely on a practical level, I think there might be something to it there. It might also be that these are all products of the same generation of Canadian film school.
That's true too. Yeah, that's also true.
Could be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Directorially, I think there are some interesting choices. I mentioned earlier, but I do love that sort of hammer close up on Mabel's eyes when she realizes that the miner is there.
Yeah.
And like
tight quarters.
Yeah.
Very hammer. Yeah.
We don't get a lot of that. So when it does happen, it feels really special. I do spend more time in the nitpick space because it doesn't grab me by the balls in the same way that it does with you. And I think it runs a bit slow. It runs a bit long. For a 93-minute movie, it feels a little bit long for me.
Interesting.
But I still enjoy it and I respect it. So in terms of a score, I would give it 7 out of 13 little shiny headlamps waving around in the mine.
Nice. That is a wholly incongruous rating, considering the diatribe of abuse you just gave the movie leading up to the rating.
7 out of 13 is what, just over half, right?
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll save you the guff and get straight to fucking. No surprise.
I like it when you
come
go
at
during
slashers.
fucking.
I bet you do. I come at slashers with maybe a lower bar than you. I just get a very specific type of entertainment out of it. So when a slasher movie excels beyond the confines of the genre and does really cool stuff, like have incredibly clever foreshadowing and some beautiful establishing shots and a wholly believable young cast who aren't even remotely annoying, in my opinion, and who deliver strong performances in a place that is just created for my imagination to run wild with. A small mining town in Nova Scotia is where I've always wanted to see a movie like this. But for me, the magic in this movie is that it's a really artfully made slasher, which is exactly what Black Christmas is. There's a thread here of Canucksploitation winning and doing great things. I do think it's really pleasing to look at because it ticks all my boxes. It's not saying it's for everyone. For a lot of people, the aesthetic of the remake will be much more their speed. There's just like, for me, win after win after win in this movie. I love basically all of it. So I'm going to give it 11 ripped out horny blonde hearts in chocolate boxes out of 10.
11 out of 10?
Yep.
That's bonkers.
I know. It's just great. You cap it off with a really beautiful murder ballad that recontextualizes the whole vibe of the movie. It's end-to-end magic. Slasher magic.
I want to just point out that you've rated this higher than Black Christmas and The Burning.
Yep.
I feel like you're saying yeah, but I see your eyes.
Black Christmas is objectively a better movie. But again, not without its flaws. Chunks of it are boring. Some of the characters are really bland and difficult to watch. Some of it's sort of gut-twistingly cringe. As a Christmas horror movie, I'd have to rate it much higher because it's in a different category. And The Burning just falls down because of the hooker stuff. I can never get past the hooker. I hate that scene.
You don't hate that scene. Go back and listen to that
I
episode.
do.
You
bums me out.
You rave about that scene.
I rave about how uncomfortable it makes me, and that's not always a good thing.
Can I give you one final thought and then we'll end?
Final think me.
So, before like the modern era, movies used to come out way later in the UK than they would in their original territories, normally America, but in this case Canada.
One of us had to say that at some point.
Yeah.
Always happens.
The problem with that in this movie is that this came out in cinemas in the UK on March the 30th. What fucking stupid thing to do. Just wait a year.
Doomed. Yeah, you just doomed your movie. Or halved the amount of money you were going to make.
Literally. Yeah. Put out My Bloody Valentine on Valentine's Day in the UK or anywhere. It came out on the...
Everywhere.
Yeah. It came out on the 11th in America and I think maybe the same day in Canada. But
Yeah.
Does it just...
You're planning your Valentine's night, your date, you're going to go to the cinema.
Yeah.
What are you going to watch? Probably My Bloody Valentine.
Literally. Imagine all the guys that would convince their girlfriends to go with them to watch this, horrible murder movie. It'd be great fun.
Yeah. That's a colossal fuck up.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Speaking of colossal fuck ups...
So that would be my key logistical criticism of this movie, for the record.
Speaking of catastrophic fuck-ups, it's the end of the podcast, and the last thing that you have to do, dear listener, is go to redscare.net and buy a copy of the album of your choice.
And look at the tour dates. All the tour dates on that website are meticulously updated by the purveyor of Red Scare Industries, Tobias Jeg, by hand, and you can find out where and when your favorite bands are playing now at redscare.net.
If they're playing now, then you've missed it.
Well, you could just turn this off and go in.
Oh, yeah. Unless it's in a different place.
Logistics with Jamie Carruthers. This has been the Logistics Podcast.
Final logistics.